Currently, we have a radical change in government policy, which we're all familiar with, which is called tariffs. And when the new administration started to announce that there were going to be major tariffs put on other countries, there was an effort by the financial community to be very cautious, even negative, about whether the idea of using tariffs as a major part of economic policy was a good one. In many cases, I tend to have strong opinions one way or another on changes in economic policy. But I have to confess that during this last couple months when tariffs have been in the news so much, and people say, well, do you think that tariffs are a good thing for the economy or a bad thing? I'll say, I don't know. I'm not familiar with all of this. There are some people who are very negative of the U.S. tariff policy. For example, I'm a great fan of the British investor and analyst Alistair MacLeod, and he points to the bad result that we got from a tariff policy in the United States back during the Great Depression. He speaks of what was called the Smoot-Hawley tariff as extending, in his view, the length of the Depression by what it did, because the U.S. government put those tariffs on foreign imports, and as a result, many foreign countries took retaliatory action and said, well, if you're putting tariffs on us, we're going to do the same thing to you, which was one of the factors that caused the total amount of world trade to decline dramatically, and that damaged both the American economy and the other economies, contributing to the length of the Great Depression under Franklin Roosevelt, who continued the Smoot-Hawley process, which, as I say, was a law outside of the president's ability to change. On the other hand, as we started getting the actions by the administration of tariffs, and what you tended to find was, and this is the case with a number of the administration's perspective, is the guy wants to make a deal, and he uses strong language about an issue like tariffs as his first cut, and as the negotiations start, he can change his policy on a moment's notice. And the main theme, I guess there are two main themes, appeal to the administration about tariffs. The more important is that by putting barriers to cheap imports, particularly of manufactured goods, that he can improve the size of the American manufacturing sector, which has been knocked down heavily. And who would that benefit? It would benefit the whole working class, and a very good thing in so many areas of the country where they might have had a manufacturing plant, good employment in whatever the industry was, and that was moved away by previous policies of the administration, both parties, I should mention. And so you ended up with, as we all know, a lot of manufacturing jobs moving elsewhere, particularly, of course, to China. And now, as a result of the most recent developments, you're seeing some new tariff policies on individual countries, such as England, such as India, and China itself, that I think they can make a good case will be good for the American economy, in part because it's a very different environment than we had under Smoot-Hawley or previous types of tariffs, and also because the negotiations can lead to things that are better for the United States versus China in areas other than tariffs per se, such as the Chinese policy has been that if the United States invents a new product and improves the technology and is protected under U.S. patent laws from making a benefit from that the Chinese government has essentially ignored the IP and have come up with similar technology from nothing that they haven't had to pay for, which makes their products cheaper and they can undercut American manufacturing. This is a major issue that, as I understand it, is part of the negotiations with the new tariff-related policy between China and the United States. And also, I've read that Chinese have indicated that dealing with the new administration is very different from dealing with previous administrations that really paid no attention to the real damage done to so many companies by intellectual property, their patents, being ignored by China. So my sense is that it's still probably early to say what the overall impact of tariffs are going to be, but I'm no longer one that says, you know, it could well be negative, it could well be positive, instead on a longer term basis. Having said that, in the near term, it's clear that the negative impact of how the tariff policies were announced has had an impact on the stock market and on the concerns of the overall investment community about the credibility of investing in the United States. And some of that is definitely a factor as well. But my final comment on tariffs is it could well be overall, on a longer term basis, that what the current administration has done has been a major benefit to the United States.